Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the screening and panel discussion of paper lanterns. My name is Masako Toki, a senior project manager at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. I'm also a proud alumna of this school. We are so honored to host this important and timely event on our campus. As our school and research center promote peace and security through education, research, and cross-cultural understanding, I can't think of a better film event to host on our campus at this time. This film is an inspiring story of an atomic bomb survivor that fosters reconciliation, friendship, peace building, and more, all of which we need now more than ever. And we are so grateful to be able to bring this film to our community. I am especially grateful to Ms. Nobuko Saito Cleary for joining us by driving more than 2 hours to Monterey. I also want to express my appreciation to her husband, Dr. Gary Cleary, and her good friend, Dr. Kirk Zeller, for coming all the way. We are so pleased to co-sponsor this event with the Japan Society of Northern California. I would also like to thank the Consulate General of Japan in San Francisco and the United States Japan Foundation for their support. This event is part of our center's ongoing efforts to promote disarmament and non-proliferation education, especially among younger generation, including high school students. One of our center's flagship disarmament education projects, the Critical Issues Forum, promotes disarmament education for high school students from Japan and the United States. So I am very happy to see that a group of local high school students have also joined the event tonight. With this year's Nobel Peace Prize being awarded to Nihon Hidankyo, the grassroots organization of atomic bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We hope that this event will be an excellent opportunity to remind us all that nuclear weapons should never be used again, while honoring the Hibakusha's tireless efforts for a world without nuclear weapons. And just as importantly, I hope that this event will be an opportunity for all the audience, especially the youth, to become more aware of the vital role that each one of us can play for peace and security around the world. Thank you so much. So now I would like to invite Dr. Jeff Dayton Johnson, Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dean of the Middlebury Institute, to give welcome remarks. Thank you, JD.
Thank you, Masako, for the kind introduction. My name is Jeff Dayton Johnson. I'm the Dean of the Middlebury Institute, and on behalf of, thank you, and now you can hear me. On behalf of the Middlebury community worldwide, I want to welcome you to this event. I want to reiterate something that Masako said, which is very important, which is that there's a great affinity between is the appropriate pronoun. There's a great affinity between the purpose behind this movie and the values and principles that we seek to pursue at this institute. And we do a lot of education in a lot of different areas, but there's a great focus on intercultural communication and on promoting global security, most notably security from fear of a nuclear war and all of the damages that would ensue. That's very much at the heart of this film. And that's a very big commonality between this film and the Middlebury Institute. I'm very pleased, therefore, that we're cooperating in this screening of the film. But there's a very specific commonality between the subject matter of this film and this institution that some of you may be aware of. And that is that the remarkable subject, the inspiring subject of this film, Mr. Mori, met with President Obama, President Barack Obama, the first sitting U.S. president, I believe, to visit Hiroshima many decades after the tragedy that occurred there. Mr. Mori met with President Obama, and that encounter is, the photograph from that encounter is pictured on the screen behind me. The interpreter for President Obama, who has only seen his hairless scalp, is seen, and by the way, he shaves his head. He could have a full head of hair if he wanted to. We're not highlighting his baldness. That interpreter is Lefteris Kafatos, who's one of the leading Japanese to English interpreters at the highest level of diplomacy in the United States, who has interpreted for President Obama, who interpreted for President Trump, who is a graduate of 2010 from this institution and was there at that very moving moment and has spoken about how meaningful the encounter was. And so that knowledge and knowing Lefteris as I do brings a special interest for me and for many of us here at the Middlebury Institute in seeing tonight's film to give greater context to that historic meeting. So thank you so much to Nobuko Saito Cleary for producing this film and bringing it to share with this community, to all of the participants in the program tonight and those who made it possible, particularly to Masako, my great colleague, and her fellow colleagues from the Center for Nonproliferation Studies, as we celebrate the center's 35th anniversary. Its work has never been more relevant. And thanks finally to all of you for your interest in this event, for being here and spending some time with us to learn from the film and to learn from each other. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you so much. So now we have a special remarks from Japan. Jamaican Ambassador Shorna-Kay Richards will be giving a special remarks, and our center's director, Dr. William Potter, is going to introduce Ambassador Richards.
Thank you very much, Masako. And I'm going to be exceptionally brief. Are we sure that we have Shorna-Kay on the line? Okay, just want to make sure before I do the introduction here.
I'm not sure if she would like.
Shorna-Kay, we can see a note that says ambassador, but we're still looking, I'm looking for you, but I'll assume that you'll appear momentarily. So I don't want to say too many words of welcome and to kind of reiterate what's already been said, though it is really a delight to see Nobuko Saito Cleary here as this in a sense is a reprise of a seminar that we also participated in Geneva this past July on the margins of the 2024 NPT Prep Comp, but I'm not going to go into that. Rather, Masako asked me to be very, very brief, which is difficult for me to do as a professor who's programmed to speak for at least 50 minutes at a shot here. And I could easily speak for 50 minutes by way of introducing Ambassador Shorna-Kay Richards, but I'm going to be very succinct. I would simply say that Ambassador Richards is one of the most astute, most talented diplomats that I've had the pleasure to know over a long career. I believe that we met in 2016, although she tells me that she saw me, I think, at the 2015 NPT Review Conference in New York, where she was the Deputy Permanent Rep of Jamaica. She has served as the Jamaican Ambassador to Japan since 2024. She currently serves as the chair of the United Nations Secretary General's Advisory Board for Disarmament Affairs, a very, very prestigious position. But most importantly, for our purposes, she was the commencement speaker last spring at the Middlebury Institute's spring commencement. And what was particularly striking, we've had many inspiring speakers, but we've never had one who could both speak and sing and dance at the same time here. So Shorna-Kay, I'm expecting a little of everything from you, which is, I think, very early in the morning for you, but it's really a delight to welcome you back, at least virtually, from Tokyo. I get pleased to give the mic to my good friend and a very distinguished diplomat, Ambassador Shorna-Kay Richards.
Thank you very much, Bill. I don't know if you can all hear me. Yes. Minasama, ohayou gozaimasu. Good morning to you all. It is wonderful to join you today from Tokyo. And again, let me thank my good friend, Dr. Bill Potter, for his kind introduction. As I said, it's wonderful to join you for the screening of this powerful documentary, Paper Lanterns. And on this occasion, I pay tribute to the resilient spirit and the compassionate voice of Mr. Shigeaki Mori and fellow atomic bomb survivors. Since its release in 2016, Paper Lanterns has been shown in several notable locations around the world, including at the UN headquarters in New York, and most recently in Geneva on the margins of the preparatory committee of the 2026 NPT Review Conference. Now, as the film producer, Ms. Noboko Saito Clary, has said at previous screenings, her mission is to share Mr. Mori's story with the hope of educating younger generations. And with education as one of its core objectives, it is therefore quite fitting that this documentary has finally come to the CNS, a world-renowned institution in the field of non-proliferation studies and a leading global champion of disarmament education and youth empowerment, especially through its Critical Issues Forum. Let me thank again Dr. William Potter, founder and director of the center, and Masako Toki, senior education project manager, for their efforts to screen the film at the Middlebury Institute and for their kind invitation for me to be here and to be a part of this event. Today, I'm especially pleased to join you from Tokyo for two main reasons. The first is that the screening is taking place against the backdrop of the recent award of the Nobel Peace Prize for 2024 to Nihon Hidankyo, the grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors, otherwise known as the Hibakusha from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in recognition of the group's education and lobbying efforts. For the past 7 decades, the Hibakusha have stood up. They have mobilized in their quest to save humanity. Courage and moral leadership have been their compass on the long and arduous road. Indeed, the Paper Lanterns powerfully shows the story of Mr. Mori, one of these brave survivors who have been working tirelessly for a nuclear-free world, with one aim: to prevent history from repeating itself. Moreover, Mr. Mori's story, which shows our common humanity and compassion, is a call to action for all of us, to take action in cognizance of the importance of peace. And he has said, war brings destruction and hatred, and peace brings prosperity and happiness. Today, Mr. Mori's message is more urgent than ever in this time of global trepidation. Today, our world is increasingly dominated by wars and conflicts, with an over-reliance on military solutions instead of dialogue and diplomacy. And alarmingly, we are witnessing the erosion of the nuclear taboo. But this is not the time for us to despair. As the Sierra Nobel Peace Prize reminds us, this is the time to carry forward the experience and the message of the Hibakusha, to redouble our efforts for nuclear disarmament and world peace. Indeed, the award of the Nobel Peace Prize has been met with joy, with hope, with energy here in Japan, a country which must seize the urgent message of this year's Peace Prize, calling for an acceleration in efforts to achieve a nuclear-free future. Now, the second reason I'm pleased to join you from Tokyo is my own story and its connection to Japan, the only country to have ever suffered atomic bombings. I am a proud beneficiary of disarmament and non-proliferation education, including from the CNS. And as I participate in today's event, I am humbled and amazed by the realization that a promise I made nearly 20 years ago to the Hibakusha to advance their plea and advocate for nuclear weapons-free world has shaped my own career path towards disarmament. What is my story? In 2005, I was privileged to get accepted into the UN Program of Fellowship on Disarmament. Thanks to the program study visit, I was able to visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where I heard firsthand the heart-wrenching and courageous testimonies of the A-bomb survivors. This personal experience broadened and deepened my understanding of the Hibakusha's plea that no one else should ever suffer as they had. No more Hiroshima, no more Nagasaki. And as I departed Hiroshima in October 2005, I took this appeal and I promised myself that I would support the cause of nuclear weapons abolition in my future work. And 7 years later, in 2012, my assignment as Jamaica's Deputy Ambassador to the United Nations presented me with the ideal opportunity to translate the Hibakusha's plea into action as a delegate to the UN First Committee. And I became actively involved with the initiative on the humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons and the advocacy work of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, including on the negotiations of the historic treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. I never imagined that in September 2020, 15 years later after my study visit to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I would have been appointed as Jamaica's ambassador to Japan. And during these past 4 years, I have been able to attend the annual peace ceremonies in these two A-bomb cities, which is always emotional for me as I renew my promise and determination to continue taking forward the Hibakusha's appeal. And I'm privileged to do so, including in my current role as chair of the UN Secretary General's Advisory Board on Disarmament Matters, always guided by their plea for lasting peace. As the paper lanterns powerfully shows us, we must not lose sight of the value of putting people at the center of action on nuclear disarmament. Indeed, let us embrace Mr. Mori's story of courage, of determination, of reconciliation, of friendship, and redouble global efforts to rid the world of these inhumane weapons and build a culture of peace. In this great endeavor, peace and disarmament education and youth empowerment are vital now more than ever. And Dr. Potter wants me to sing, so as Bob Marley would sang, never give up the fight, never give up the fight. No more Hiroshima, no more Nagasaki. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you. Thank you so much, Consul General. So now I am extremely honored to introduce Ms. Nobuko Saito clearly, the film producer. She has dedicated many years of her life to introducing and promoting Japanese culture in the United States, particularly in Northern California, through her involvement with organizations such as the Japan Society of Northern California and the Community School of Music and Arts, Hidden Villa, among many other organizations. You can find her full bio on this brochure, so please take a look at. But one of her most notable recognitions is being awarded the Order of the Rising Sun, Silver Race by the Japanese Emperor in 2022. She has been serving as a chair of the Japan Society of Northern California's annual fundraising gala for over 20 years. Nobuko has produced 3 films, of course, Paper Lanterns, Challenges, and Dr. Ballas, all of which are award-winning documentaries. Now, Nobuko-san, stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I give my speech, let me say I was so impressed by each speakers who have exactly same vision and then passion. And I feel very good. And thank you so much for inviting me. Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I am Nobuko Saito, clearly, producer of the movie Paper Lantern. I'm honored to speak to you today, and it is a privilege to show Paper Lantern screen at this special event at Middlebury Institute International Study at Montreal. I'd like to express my appreciation especially to Dr. William Potter, CNS founding director, whom I had the honor to meet at the United Nations Geneva, where we both served as speakers. And especially, I am grateful to Ms. Masako Toki, who worked tirelessly to prepare this program. Thank you so much. The movie Paper Lantern has been seen and acclaimed by many viewers and has received a great support, including from previous U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Caroline Kennedy, and John Ruth, and many more. Also, I wish to thank the Consulate General of Japan in San Francisco and Japan Society of Northern California, who kindly co-sponsored this program. How many people in this room have watched the Paper Lantern before? Very good, thank you. If you watched this movie before, I guarantee you will find something new, because that's what I feel every time when I watch this movie. I appreciated Paper Lantern was a part of the NLPT review conference and was shown with the support of that Office for Disarmament Affairs in Geneva. We showed the movie 4 times the United Nations in New York, whereas most of the university, both US and Japan, and many, many places. I have been proud to be involved in this wonderful movie as a producer since 2016. When I became involved with this movie, I said to myself, is this really there is someone like Mr. Mori who spent 40 years of his life to discover and tell the truth about 12 American POWs who were in Hiroshima when atomic bomb was hit? He pursued his task of not only finding their burial site, but locating the families so that he could eventually provide comfort and closure to them. Then after I spoke with Barry and Mr. Mori, my question became, how could I tell this story to so many people who can learn how important it is to live in this world without the fighting and fear and mistrust? I knew we needed to enable more people to see the compassion of this man, especially our future generations. It is important to see a little embracing such hope and love. Barry Ferrachete captured the beauty of the people through his lenses, and Chad Cannon, who scored the music, brought a beautiful melody to transcend the viewer's heart. And I worked to share and spread the mission of this movie. That mission became my mission. And then I could tell that more people about the importance of having a peace and a life without nuclear war would spread far and wide to people of many ages, ethnicity, and history. The movie will tell each of you how important it is to live in this world with harmony and peace, without fear and tears, and to sit and seek sunlight and laughter instead. I accompanied Mr. Mori and Mrs. Mori last trip to United States in 2018. And then I found that this message should be more important to younger generation, and many people, students don't know as much about the effect of the Hiroshima and the Nagasaki when the atomic bomb hit. And it is now my mission to share this story in hope of educating the younger generation. It is gratifying that school textbook in Japan now include a story about Mr. Mori and then Obama's visit. And each opportunity to present this documentary is significant, spreading the message. To have the President Obama attended Hiroshima in 2016 was very important to all of us and brought more attention to the causes because of that. Mr. Mori's personal experience and a remarkable achievement illustrated the importance of every individual doing their part in supporting that removal of the destructive weapons, helping all those who have suffered.
Thank you so much. Nobuko-san, you are right. Whenever I see this movie, I have a different feeling, different emotion, but more importantly, different determination to work for nuclear disarmament. Thank you so much. So now we are moving to the panel discussion. So I would like to invite panelists go on to the stage, please. Ms. Nobuko Cleary, Saito Cleary, Dr. William Potter, and the moderator will be our center's education and training director, Mr. Jean Dupree. So this panel discussion will be moderated by Mr. Jean Dupree, and Mr. Jean Dupree has over 35 years of experience in diplomacy, covering a range of non-proliferation and arms control issues, and he is currently the Director of Education and Training at the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies.
Thank you, Masako, for that kind introduction. And it's really a privilege to be moderating the session with two giants in the field, one in the field of filmmaking and the passion to bring out the story of not only Mr. Mori, but the Hibakusha and the plight of the people of Hiroshima that perished but continue to be with us today, including those 12 American POWs. So I don't think I need to further introduce Ms. Nobuko Saito Cleary. She is a prominent producer with a lot of experience in this field, but as you could see through the film, through her eyes, looking at this issue, one of the most passionate people to talk on this issue. And then I also wanted to introduce, as you already heard from him, Dr. William Potter, the founding director of the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies, the Sam Nunn Chair of Non-Proliferation here at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies. Dr. Potter founded the Center for Non-Proliferation Studies 35 years ago. We just celebrated his association with the Middlebury Institute for 35 years. He is an internationally renowned and respected analyst, but moreover, and even more importantly, an educator in this field, and is one of the bastions of the concept of non-proliferation disarmament education. So I want to firstly introduce a very short message by Barry Frechette, as you see, who is the director of this powerful film. And as I get to line this up, maybe I'll just share one observation that I have about the film. I have seen the film before, and as Ms. Saito clearly challenged me as before, is what is the one thing that you noticed in the film that you may have forgotten from the first time you saw the film? And that was the observation by the gentleman who is the family member of one of the American pilots, who said, truth will always see the light. And this film, to me, is just another example of all the secrets that were kept from people as a result of not only the development of nuclear weapons, the production of the material of nuclear weapons, and the testing and the impact that that had on people that unknowingly became victims of these weapons. And so let this, to me, is one of those, as Masako mentioned in the introduction of the panel or after the movie, the films and opportunities like this give us even more determination, more inspiration to do what we do here at Middlebury Institute. And that is not only to pursue the truth, but also to educate the next generation of policymakers and analysts. So, as Masako mentioned at the beginning of the evening, there are students in the room that will distribute question cards if you wish to write some questions to add to the discussion, please do so, and the students will bring it forward to Masako, and I will introduce those to our two panelists. So I'm going to kick this off with a question to Ms. Saito Cleary. The director just mentioned the issue of emotions, and I'm sure this is kind of a lead into to the answer to this question. But what was your biggest motivation for making this film?
Thank you very much for asking me. Before I started to talk, wasn't it sad? How many people cry with every time when I watch my audience, and then it's a reaction of that watching a movie, people cry. So every time when I have an event, I call Mr. Mori, Japanese. Do you know you made another ladies cry? Did you? He said he was laughing. Really? He said, yes, because to tell the truth, started to cry. But it's, yes, thank you for motivation that I like to share with you. This movie is a documentary, so that I have to put that the fact and the truth. And then yet you have to bring a lot of data, and those data was collected by Mr. Mori and then others. Before I got involved for working as a producer for this movie, I translate a book by Dr. Masao Shiotsuki, who is a husband of the very famous Madame Yaeko Shiotsuki. She is the older sister of Urasenke Oyemoto Senno Soshitsu. And Mr. Dr. Shiotsuki went to Omura Navy Hospital in Nagasaki, where he witnessed of that the Fatman for that plutonium bomb, which killed 74,000 people in Nagasaki instantly. Hiroshima was a little boy and the little man that killed that 140,000 people. But because of Dr. Shiotsuki was a medical doctor, he documented everything is a medical record. And I was translated the book. That was the most difficult job for me. It was devastated, made me angry, and then it made me so sad. It was just difficult. And then he wanted to give a talk to that International Atomic Bomb Report, 1952. And then he got the big pressure from American government, and he was not able to give a talk. His medical record did not arrive. And then this Japanese government also gave him a tremendous pressure so that the international atomic bombs meeting was canceled. Day before he was going to give an opening speech and report about atomic bomb. Now that was at the starting line that I was doing that for this movie. So that when I was going to make the movie, I did not want to make a movie as a revenge or intimidating the people. I just want to tell the people how important it is to keep a peace. And then this story is about the 12 POWs family was giving that the closure by the one man, Mr. Mori, who spent 40 years to try to find the truth to them. Now, those 12 people were told by American government they were missing action. They didn't want to tell them they died by the atomic bomb, which they invented, right? So that they didn't know why they were missing in action. So finally, he gave that the truth. So that those story was, to me, the friendship between that the country who dropped the bomb and then that the victim who got that atomic bomb. Yet, and they became so close to each other, and I called Paper Lantern family. We see the time to time, and then every time when I show that the movie, I give them a record and a report so that they know what's going on. So my mission from this movie is telling people how important it is to live in this world without a nuclear weapon. And then for those each event that I share, that the truth, and then show the movie, if some of you will tell another people how important it is to live in this world with peace, and then it's understanding each other, that is a mission.
Thank you for that very inspirational response. I recall that there was right at the end of the film, the comment that Mr. Mori and you brought not only the two family members from the deceased together, but they brought people together from different cultures, two different countries, and the symbolism of that, I think, is extremely powerful. So, Dr. Potter, a question to you. I'm sure you'd agree this is a very powerful film. What struck you most about the film, and how do you consider this film being relevant 80 years, almost 80 years after these events occurred, for today's uncertain times?
Sure that my mic works. Can we switch here? Thank you. Thank you very much. So, first of all, I've now seen the film 5 times, and it is really exceptionally, powerful. And I feel much the way today that I felt when we were together in Geneva on the margins of the NPT meeting, that somehow whatever I might say, it was kind of inadequate. That, I mean, watching the film was so powerful. And I also thought the remarks at the outset, particularly by Ambassador Richards, was also very powerful as an introduction, that what I have to add seems almost inconsequential. So I'm going to respond in perhaps a fashion that you didn't anticipate, Jean, but that's what is normally the case when I am given the mic here. What I found, both inspiring but also very troubling were the circumstances around which I first watched this film in Geneva. I was a delegate to an NPT conference that was supposed to be examining, current nuclear challenges, reviewing the implementation of the treaty, hopefully making some recommendations. And I was struck first and foremost by, while we had a good crowd, I didn't recognize many of my colleagues from different delegations. I was really disappointed that at this meeting that was designed to focus on preventing the spread of nuclear weapons, negotiating in good faith a cessation of the arms race and leading to nuclear disarmament, that we didn't have the audience that I had hoped might be inspired by this film. And to go across the Palais in Geneva from where the event was held back into the session where we were, in fact, undertaking a review of the NPT, and to listen to what I found to be very, stale statements, repetitions of things that I'd been hearing since I first participated in this process in 1995, kind of ignoring the acute nature of the challenges that we are facing today and of dealing with business as usual, I found very depressing. So that's the depressing element, and unfortunately, I see that all the time. I think what is inspiring to me about the film, and why I think it's so important, not only for diplomats and policymakers to observe the film, but for our students, some of whom are in this audience. We have high school students, we may have some undergraduates, we have graduate students, and we have other young diplomats here. Is the message, which is a hopeful message, about reconciliation, a message, I think, about the power of empathy, and the need, as I think Mr. Mori said, something to the effect, I wrote it down in advance, that he always darted about in the darkness of history trying to shed some light. And so I think this film does that exceptionally powerfully, and should inspire us all at a moment in time where leaders in the United States, in the Russian Federation, in China, throughout the world, really have to be sensitized to what you so brilliantly showed in this movie. And so I hope that this film is in fact seen more widely, particularly by policymakers who have to take to heart the message that Mr. Mori so eloquently developed, spoke about, and you recorded.
Thank you, Dr. Potter. And continuing on that same sort of topic about the value of this film, especially for our students. Ms. Saito Cleary, could you perhaps reflect a little bit on your view on what the younger people and older generations as well should take away from this film?
Well, I think depending on that people, however, from my request and from my wish, I just very simple. I want them to take that common sense judgment. And then it's no matter what, I like them to keep the peace. So after this movie, I would like them to think that we are very, very lucky to live in this world without a nuclear weapon. However, nowadays it started very dangerous. I feel very uncomfortable watching the news. And sometimes I don't like to watch the news because depressing. Yet, and then I'm helpless. I like to involve. Meanwhile, I'm talking to the people that nuclear war is very difficult, very sad. And like I said, 140,000 people in Nagasaki died instantly, and then 340,000 people died in Hiroshima. However, as of now, that the Nagasaki is twice more. I mean, Nagasaki was 74,000 people first, but now 140,000 people died. And then Hiroshima is 340. That means 500,000 almost, 480,000 people pass away because of radiation, the complicated cancer, things like that. So for the young people who didn't go through this problem because of they were young, they didn't know that, they didn't witness, but because of that scary fact. We have a number. We have to be careful, not involved for this type of thing. And then more you talk, you will learn how scary and dangerous for the human in this planet to keep that nuclear war or nuclear weapon. So that is what I really want them to think.
Thank you, and even give more importance to the Nobel Peace Prize award and to the group that represent the Hibakusha, the Nihon Aidaiko. In that vein, also, Dr. Potter, as we here at the Middlebury Institute and CNS in particular pride ourselves to train the next generation of experts and analysts in the field of non-proliferation, arms control, and disarmament. What are the biggest lessons that we can learn from this film, both as educators, but also as scholars and students?
Let me, begin by observing that when I had the opportunity to serve on the Secretary General's Advisory Board for Disarmament Affairs, I think the major accomplishment that I can point to was the initiation of what became a UN experts group on disarmament and nonproliferation education. And I think what was so important about that group, and there were a group of 10 experts from all over the world, very, very different in terms of the regions that they represented, but some were nuclear weapons possessors, others were far from it. But what made it possible for us to generate nearly 36 recommendations by consensus was the recognition that what was most important was not what to think, but rather how to think and to develop critical thinking skills. And one of the most important recommendations was to make use of what I like to think of as active learning, basically role-playing and simulations. And that's what I've devoted much of my professional career to doing. I see a number of my students who yesterday and then again tomorrow will meet from 4 to 6 and will try to negotiate the next preparatory meeting of the NPT. And they hopefully will do so in better fashion than their real world counterparts. But I think what's so interesting, if you were to observe, and I would encourage those of you who have the opportunity to observe these students, in action, it's really remarkable what they've been able to accomplish and to really master in such a short period of time. And so, while in general I'm very pessimistic, Jean, when I observe these student negotiators who maybe 2 months ago knew nothing about the NPT, masterfully, and you observe in the class, and insist me in that class, observe them in these negotiations. It gives me hope, because I think what's most really important at this crucial moment in time is to bring in new blood, to bring in young people who are not cynical, who have energy and idealism. And hopefully those individuals will soon have an opportunity to shape policies in national governments, including my own. So that's what gives me hope. But what I also would encourage us to do, because we can talk for many hours, and we've already been here for several hours. I think if there's some young people in the audience or other parties in the audience who have a question or two, maybe we can take those. And then I think it's probably appropriate for us to reflect on what we've heard, because I think sometimes, it's several hours after the film that you begin to think about what was said, and it really resonates. And I, having watched it 5 times, and I know you've watched it many more times, continue to think of many important things that are relevant today. So I don't want to have too long a discussion up here, but let's see if there's some questions from the audience. And I'm not sure how, Masako, you plan to do this.
No, I in fact received some questions already, and one of the questions that I was also burning to ask to Naboku is your personal interaction with Mr. Mori. And through your interaction, what was the surprising discoveries about him that you found? And then to add to that, a question from the audience: how did you find him and his story? And also, what happened to all the his research material? Where is that preserved?
Thank you for asking. Yes, there are three categories you ask me. One is that how I found Mr. Mori. Mr. Mori, and then is that our director, very Ferrettet's uncle. He was that the very good friend, was that more likely pen pal. And then when he visited his house, he found a Christmas card from Mr. Mori. And he asked, who is Mr. Mori? That's how he started. And then when I met him, I was very surprised. He is extremely kind, yet very aggressively to learn. And they ask us so many questions over and over, just like I used to learn English, ask a question to the teacher over and over. And then he told me all those data he had. And then I talked to the Barry. You know, Barry, we should study to make the movie out of it. But as you notice that the end of the role that my producer's name was later. Yes? And the reason why that the first movie was not the same, the one you watched. That the first movie, they didn't have a scene with President Obama hug that Mr. Mori. I found that the news was through my friend, Ambassador John Roos. And John called me up, Nobuko, do you know that the president is going to Hiroshima? I said, never happened before. And then that'd be great. And then how it happened is, well, this is agreement. And then John asked Obama to go there. And Caroline also helped. By the way, when I was a student, that Ted Kennedy was my sponsor. So I was able to be with the Kennedys when that Caroline was this cute girl. Later, she became a wonderful lady and politician and everything, so perfect. But that's how we started to connect in each other's story. And then when I made this movie, like I mentioned to you earlier, I did not want to make the movie after you watch it. Oh no, I don't want to see it anymore. I want them to see how dangerous it is to have a nuclear weapon, how important it is to have a peace. That was my mission for the movie. So that for scenery, also I was very careful. Actually, quite many scenes we changed. And then I was very lucky because Barry was a wonderful director. He listened to me. And because of his language problem, sometimes he got it after the translation was done. And then when I was in Japan, I was in show business. I had my own television show and the radio show. So I had a somehow sense what is important for audience. And then he was very good to listen and then walked out very good. That's why I have to go everywhere to try to tell the story. But there was one more question you had, which I didn't remember. Two of them.
I want to maybe follow up on the question is what happened to the documentation, all his research?
Oh, yes. Those things was belong to that Heiwa Center in Hiroshima. And then most of the thing with that we used based on that Mori's research, which he spent 40 years. But there are a lot of things that we got from Hiroshima's Heiwa Museum. And then as you notice that you saw a lot of drawing. I did intentionally using a drawing because of actually seeing was be too much for some of the people to see. And so that those paintings were drawn by the hibakusha. So that to me, it is same. And then because of that, you can see more, you can pay more attention what is really happened. So that was my style. And then all the document, if you want to see more, you can visit to that Hiroshima Peace Center that they will show. However, when I visited the one time, a long time ago, there was a steps, 3 steps in front of the Mitsubishi Bank at that time. And then atomic bomb hit, so that the person who was sitting on that steps, shadow remained. And then there are a lot of fingernail, it's 10-centimeter fingernail. It's growing because of radiation. Those things was not there. It was only that the Sanchan's tricycle, and then Sadako's Senbazu silent crane. So I asked that executive director for the Peace Center, where is all the document? And then they said, quite many people who came to that museum gave a complaint because too severe evidence. But they are still keeping everything there. So that time to time, I was with the mayor of Hiroshima, Matsui mayor. He mentioned time to time he will bring it and then exchange it, just like a museum. And so that, unfortunately, when I visited there, it was not enough to me. Yes?
I'm going to want to ask a follow-up question, and then I'll ask the last question from Dr. Paro. You saw the opportunity when President Obama visited, and I think that was captured in that iconic photograph of President Obama hugging Mr. Mori. You have obviously interacted with Mr. Mori. How did he feel about that moment?
He mentioned to me that, as you remember the scene, that Obama, who was representative of United States of America, and then is Abe, was a representative of Japan, victim, and then is a person who did, walking together. That is a big scene. And then during that the speech of Obama, he didn't mention Mr. Mori's name, but he's mentioned that there were 2 American POW who died, and then there was a man who sought out of that the American man was died, and then wanted to help that, to give that project. With that sentence, he knew that Mr. Obama mentioned about him, recognized all long years research. So he was so emotionally touched. So he told me he memorized all his speech in Japanese, of course, and they wanted to speak because there was an excellent interpreter who graduated from the very institute, so that he was ready. However, when he wanted to say something to President Obama, he said it was blank, not even one word he remembered. So he started to cry, but President Obama realized that, so he hugged and tapped his back, just like mommy tapping a baby. And then he realized that moment he knew they communicated without word. So he said that was his highlight. And then he told me later, you know, Nobuko, I'm sure there are many people talking with the president, but I think I'm the only one who has tapped my back. So that was his highlight. And then I talk with him often. By the way, he is extremely good to talk. But every time when I call, he said, moshi moshi, moshi moshi means hello. Moshi moshi. He said, Nori-san? Shigeaki-san, Nobuko yo? Nobuko-san! Suddenly he was so happy. But according to wife, Kayako, This is maybe a little bit too long, but I just want to tell you, they married, just the first year, that he always go out every weekend. And then he didn't tell wife where he was going to. And then when she received the telephone bill, that was 7만 yen. That was 70,000 yen. At that time, that's a lot of money because of a college graduate person will receive that 4만 yen for the salary. So she thought he had a summer affair because that was arranged marriage. And so she said to the husband, "Where are you going every Saturday and Sunday?" He didn't say anything. But they found out he was going to the library to check all those data, and then wanted to see that who was in that, ransom ready on those airplane, and then call that America every time. And he couldn't speak English, but at that time, if you call that telephone company, if you pay the 700 yen, which is $7, if equivalent to $100 a dollar, that people will say, "Oh, that person is living in here," and give a number. Only the one person couldn't find the number, so he wrote a letter to White House at that time, Clinton, that Mr. President, White House, Washington, D.C., and he got the answer, and he got the, that was pretty good, isn't it? I don't think if the opposite to Japan, I don't think they get the answer. So that's how he found. So he is consistent. He doesn't give up. So that's the one thing that I was very impressed.
Well, thank you for sharing that human element. We often deal with these horrendous weapons and the consequences and the technologies, but we always need to focus on the human factor and the empathy and respect for each other.
Right.
We are running out of time, I'm going to ask Dr. Potter to respond to this question in a positive way. It is a question, and I'm very pleased that a member of the Monterey High School Critical Issues Forum Club wrote this question. How can we encourage a global perspective among students regarding nuclear disarmament, especially in light of current international tensions?
I'm not sure I have a particularly compelling answer about how we're going to solve the problem, but let me relate the question to one of our own staff members here. And that's Masako Toki, who I don't think receives enough recognition for the work that she has been doing, really in a fashion that in some ways resembles Mr. Mori's commitment. And I know she probably, I'm not trying to compare the two overtly, but there is a commitment that she has made to fostering communications at the high school level, bringing teachers together, bringing students together. And much to our amazement, when she began this program, we discovered that the subject matter of disarmament and nonproliferation was not offered at a single university, rather at a single high school in the United States. And so the motivation for the Critical Issues Forum was to try to generate interest in and to develop a curricula across different high schools in different countries. And so I think the approach that we are trying to pursue through the Critical Issues Forum is at least one step in the direction that you posed. And so what I'm so delighted about this particular gathering is that I think we can find a way to partner with you, with the Japan Society, with more high schools in Japan and in the United States to build our Critical Issues Forum, to bring more people from around the world, young people together to focus on these issues. And if we're going to be successful in that regard, I think we have to look at Masako for leadership, and she really deserves particular praise for her commitment to this work. So we will continue to do this as best we can, and we see your work and that of Mr. Mori as an inspiration for what we're doing here in Monterey. Please.
When I was in the United Nations Geneva with Dr. Potter, after that United Nations, I was invited to WTO. In that meeting, there were quite a few Japanese high school students from Hiroshima who were selected with that. They wrote that essay and they won. And they were so eager to talk with American people. I think that is one of the cases that you can approach that I will give the number to Masako-san. And then I'm sure those students in Japan love to talk with American students who can communicate and exchange that information or opinion to try to find more peace. I think that was a beginning.
Well, on that note, thank you for the positive sort of level that you left us with. I'd like to thank our panelist, Ms. Naboku Saito-Cleary, the producer of the film, and Dr. William Potter, the director, CNS director, for their remarks and also giving us some positive food for thought. So please join me in a round of applause. I also would like to, before closing the evening, express our gratitude to the Japan Society of Northern California, and of course the Consulate General of Japan in San Francisco, but also in the room, Dr. Jeff Jayton Johnson from the Institute, and the very inspirational message that we received from Ambassador Richards from Japan, from Tokyo. And with that, I'd like to invite Masako to come forward.
Thank you so much for very inspiring panel discussion. And I really would like to thank each one of you to spend 3 hours Wednesday evening. And this is a really amazing event. So I would also like to express a special thanks to Ms. Nobuko Saito-Cleary. And we have some special certificate of appreciation. So I would like to ask Dr. Potter to present to Ms. Nobuko Saito-Cleary.
Okay, so this says from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies proudly presents a certificate of appreciation to Ms. Nobuko Saito-Cleary for her tireless efforts in promoting cross-cultural understanding between Japan and the United States, and for sharing her invaluable experiences and insight with Ms. and the Monterey community. Her passion for preserving the stories of the hibakusha through the power of film has had a profound impact. We express our heartfelt appreciation and admiration for her enduring commitment to bridging cultures, fostering empathy, and inspiring future generations.
Oh, thank you so very much. This is Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you very much, everyone. And the last word of thanks goes to Masako Toki for bringing this together. Thank you,
Thank
Masako.
you so much. Thank you so much. And I would also really like to express my appreciation to all the behind-the-scenes supporters and each one of the participants. Thank you so much.
I'll get Eduardo.
Eduardo there?
Yeah. Eduardo, can you take a picture for us? Just give us one.
Okay.
I had to charge that stuff up. I've got a long drive.
Okay.
Wow.
I get one from I can text her after. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so curious to hear you. I so I said to myself, oh my God, if I'm going to this university, I am Canadian. So I realized a lot, but
But it was more effective.
That's what I'm talking about. Oh my God. Yeah.
Let's be careful walking down.
I must take out my overbread. Yeah, but it's now I will touch my.
You want me to hug this one?
I still don't want to take that with you.
Thank you very much.
One minute in a second. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah, one more call. One more call.
I think it's planned, but I think they're like.
3, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much. Oh, of course. I think getting education or so right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got everything. What's that? Leo, are you going back to the office or are you gonna go out? Okay. What is it? The mic stand as well. I think you can sing your hours. I think you can sing your hours.
No, it's all right. Oh, yeah, you get a little bit.
Because Chelsea said that if you go to yeah. Yeah, he said you're Thank you.
Of course.